Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today I'm going to be working on a reel that Nick sent in. This is a very well-made Shakespeare reel under the brand or model Encore. This is a larger reel. It's a 70 size reel, single ball bearing, but don't let that dissuade you from picking one of these up if you have an opportunity to purchase one. Nick uses these in saltwater. It has a long cast spool, so it's perfect for surf, and well, it'll handle bigger fish. So we're going to take this apart. We'll show you how the reel is made, how to service it if you have one, answer any questions or doubts you may have about the reel, and well, generally get this one back up there and fishing again so that Nick can take it out on the ocean just as the spring run starts. So we're going to start by taking off the exterior pieces and parts. And while I do that, I want to encourage you to subscribe to my channel. If you like the videos, please like them. If you want to see more, please subscribe and hit that notification button. All right, well, we just removed quickly the handle, the rotor, the adjuster. Now we're going to go down inside the case. There's 3 screws that are showing, and there may be a screw under here. So we'll start with the bump guard. The bump guard is put on these reels so that it's kind of a fail-safe. It will shatter before the case of the reel shatters, so it'll absorb some shock and shatter. When you take a reel apart, notice the screws. 3 of those have the black head, and 1 has a silver, which is underneath that bump guard. Also, when you take these reels apart, my recommendation is that you take pictures so that you can have a reference point. You probably won't find the schematic on this reel. And also with the pictures, you can take a look at what parts belong where the orientation is, and well, if something's bigger, shorter, longer, smaller, whatever, you can identify where that is. So I'm laying out the 3 screws that have the black heads on them, making sure they're all the same size so that when I go to reinstall, I know that I can put any of those screws in any of those holes there. That will work. Sometimes you'll find a narrow one or a thick one or a long one or a short one or a different thread pattern on them. You just need to be aware of that. Also, what you need to be aware if you're working on a reel for somebody else, what the orientation of the handle was. Now, Nick was using these with a right-handed crank, so when I go to reinstall, I want to make sure I put that on the right-hand side of the reel. Of course, if this was your reel, you know that, but a lot of folks work on other people's reels. So this is what I was saying about that single ball bearing. Don't be dissuaded. That is a very substantial bushing on that side of the reel. It also has a shim washer on there, 2 shim washers on that main gear. So you want to make sure that you note those. And well, we're going to bring this reel down so that we can remove the axle shaft. And all I'm seeing here is a reel that needs some lubrication. It looks like the reel is clean. It does not look like there's any damage inside the reel, which is good because they would be hard to get the parts for. And it's just a matter of cleaning, inspecting, and re-lubricating. Well, that's kind of all it takes to keep your reels fishing for a long time to come. We removed the screw from the crosswind block. I've removed the axle shaft by pulling up and out. I want to wipe that axle shaft off, make sure that it's nice and smooth, that there's no pitting or breaks in it or anything. Now I can take off the crosswind block, and you can see we have some old grease on that. We can remove the main gear, and here's the other bushing. So as I mentioned, these bushings, well, that's not a cheap piece of metal there. Kind of a throwback. That's, if you go back to the very old reels, that's kind of what the bushings were. They didn't use 16 ball bearings and all kinds of craziness. They simply used bushings. Now, if you wanted to hot rod this reel for some reason, you could put bearings in there, but why? This is a well-made reel with a good bushing system. You do not need to put the bearings in there. But again, if you wanted to do that, you certainly could do that. And when I take my pieces and parts off, I mentioned it before, we're going to put these into the parts tray, but I'm going to clean these as well. That way, when it comes time to reinstall, I can just jump right on it, and I don't have to worry about stopping losing my train of thought or my pattern or where this belonged, I can just simply get in there and start reinstalling it piece by piece. There is no grease on this. There's grease inside here, which has been thrown off by centrifugal force, but there's no grease remaining on the teeth itself. So that's, again, kind of why you want to do this. And regardless of whether the year hasn't been, it has been a year since you've serviced this, or 3 years, or whatever, you should try to do this on an annual basis, because when you go to just store the reel in the off season, assuming you have an off season, then the reel is going to puddle. The gravity is going to do its work. It's going to draw down the greases from the high spots to the low spots, and, well, you'll wind up with a reel with no grease in it. Okay, we've cleaned the case, inspected those parts. I'm going to see if I just can't put that bushing back in here. Now we want to go up top and we want to remove the rotor, make sure that everything is okay underneath. This is where the one ball bearing would be. It would be on your pinion gear. Let's see what we have here for a nut. Looks like the 15. So this has a rotor nut, and it has a tie-down clamp underneath, cleverly disguised, because it's also black. Now we should be able to remove up and out on the rotor. Then we have our eccentric cam for our anti-reverse trip. This is not an instant anti-reverse reel. Clean off your rotor. Check underneath. You see these grooves here. That's where the anti-reverse dog is going to lock in. Put a little bit of oil onto the trip lever there. And we're going to spray down the joints of the bail arm. And we do want to make sure that we have a nice even flow back and forth here. And I'm feeling a little resistance there. So at the end, what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this bail wire. I can do it right now. Remove the bail wire and see if it's true or if there's some tension in that bail wire. To do that, you want to pull the screw out of the wire. Yeah, we have just a little bit of tension. So this should lay naturally in, and what's happening is there's just a little bit of a bend there. So how do you fix that? You just bend it back. Just get it to the point where when you're doing this, it just sits naturally, just like it is. And it wasn't much, but it's just enough that it'll put tension on the swing there. And if you can take that tension off, it is going to flip easier. I do not recommend removing the bail wire entirely unless you have a bail that doesn't work. Let's see. Yeah, now we got a nice easy flip there. Just that simple little bit of alignment there is enough. Okay, that goes off to the side. I'm going to leave that set up there. Here's our big ball bearing. This is our eccentric clip. We'll show you how that manages in just a moment. This is your anti-reverse dog. We're going to remove the two screws. When you do, take a picture here, because this clamp here that's holding the pinion gear and bearing in place is not symmetrical. So you want to note that you do have this kind of U-shaped football goalpost kind of thing resting up against that anti-reverse dog. It's easy to flip it over and put it out of sequence. But just, again, pictures are good things to have. I'll leave them right on my desk because this is kind of be a simple in and out. I'm going to take my bristle brush, clean off my pinion gear. Again, it's a very dry reel, so it is time for service. There is no greases in here. Eventually, if you leave them ungreased, they will damage. Dirt and debris will get in there, act as an abrasive, start cutting down the teeth. And all of a sudden it'll be a rough rider. Same thing with the bearings. The bearings will have their greases and oils evaporate, and then you've got steel on steel, which is never really a good thing to do. So there we go. All right, we've used fishing reel grease for that. I've used Penn Precision reel grease. Here's that bearing again. This one's got that open kind of shield to it. I oil these, so we're going to take the pinion gear, put that right back in. I just noticed as I was doing that, the case is exceptionally clean. There is no dirt hanging out in there. So, well, you can just put that right back in. Grab the 2 screws that you have. So, this was a value-priced reel. It's a 70 size, as I mentioned. It's good for surf. It's good for big fish. It's good Great Lakes or catfishing or the lake. It'll serve everybody well. It's not on the upper end of the pricing range, and well, let's take a look. You've got 1 ball bearing as opposed to many, and the materials themselves, the gears are what I call pot metal. They're not triple cut marine brass or anything like that, but it is a substantial reel. It does well. All right, we're going to grease everything on this oscillation gear. The back side, which rides on the plate, the teeth, which are going to intersect with the back drive of the main gear, and the face. When you put that oscillation gear, make sure that the stud is on the down side of the swing. We'll come over now and we'll do the same thing here with our crosswind block. The only thing that needs to be greased on the crosswind block is the bottom. Last piece then is that main gear that we cleaned up. Now you don't have to get grease on every tooth. Because you have a smaller diameter pinion gear and a larger main gear, the grease will spread. Don't over grease it, that's not going to do any good. But get about what I call the right amount, right? Alright, that goes in next. And seats. Let's go over and take care of this mounting for our eccentric. Clean that off. This is an eccentric spring-driven anti-reverse. And I did notice that the clip for this is on the bottom. It's right here. That wire is going to sit in this clip or slot. I'm going to bring that in and over the post, and we're going to anchor it just like that. So you've got your extension arm of that spring into the lower end. When you're reeling, it's going to pull in just like that, and when you go to back it up, it's going to push that out when it's got tension on it, and that out part is what's going to intersect with the ridges underneath to stop the reel. While I was doing that, I just managed to knock off that crosswind block. Not a big deal. And the shim washer somehow, but that's okay. All right. Bring that back down so that your stud is below. Reset the block. Now we can bring the rotor over. So this bail probably got bent out of shape by getting knocked against something. It's not unusual for a reel like this. Let's just assume here, take a leap of faith that this has been used on a boat. You hook into a big fish and get excited, or maybe the fish goes on a run and spooks you and you weren't quite ready for that run, and the next thing you know, it hits the rail of the boat. Now it's only bail wire, it will bend, and the answer, of course, as you saw, was to bend it back. All right, that's the top. Before we leave that, we're going to grab the set screw and put that, in that little black slot that's hiding on us here. There we go. Now we can put the tie down screw over that. I'm surprised somehow that didn't fall out again. Okay. Only a light coating of grease onto your axle shaft. That's because when it comes through the pinion gear, it's going to squeeze any excess grease right off. find the flat side that faces you, bring that through, down and into the crossline block so that you can find the hole. And then the flat-headed screw here seats into that. Well, if you have any questions on this reel or any reel, just leave them in the comment section. I do try to answer the questions as best I can. And, well, if I can help you out of a jam, then double benefit there. All right, a little bit of grease onto the shaft. Bring the bushing over, close up the case. Make sure that your case has a nice tight seam. All right, we remember how these go now. We've got the 3 black screws, and as we mentioned, doesn't matter what holes they go in, they're all the same thread pattern. They're all the same length. So let's go put those in. Now, I always recommend using hand tools because you can't over tighten the case with that. If you need an assist, go ahead and use a battery-powered screwdriver, drill driver, whatever, but don't bring them in all the way. Leave them a little bit short and then finish that last little piece with your hand. That way you don't risk binding a case or cracking a case. And I wouldn't mention that if I didn't see reels come in with cases that were binding or broken or somehow damaged because of some over tightening. All right, that's the way we saw it when it came up. Last piece then is this bump guard. And we'll go take a look at what they have in store for us up top there with the drag system. My guess is it's probably going to be a Teflon drag. It may be a felt drag. And well, sometimes they use the hard washers. So there's several reels that are like this in the Shakespeare lineup. This is called the Encore. In addition to the Encore, they made this reel called the Big Water, or the Tidewater Big Water. And well, they've all been very sturdy reels that have lasted a very long time. All right, we're going to just go up top for the drags now. I've removed the retaining ring. And here's our drag stack. Now, this is a relatively small diameter washer, but they've made up for it by making more. These are felt washers, so that was one of the guesses here. They are totally dry, which means that you're going to be subject to tearing. So you don't want to do that if you can avoid that. You want to keep them wet. And how do you do that? Well, simple reel oil will do that. Since this is a 10 drag system versus a 6, there's actually an additional keyed washer and an additional eared washer. We start with the keyed washer after we've oiled that first of the drag washers, and we're just going to repeat this several times. We're going to put a good amount of fishing reel oil onto that washer, and we alternate the eared washers with the keyed washers. So that's the first of the eared washers. And here's your second keyed washer. There's one more keyed washer than there is eared washer. So the second eared washer goes in now. Last of the felt washers, or drag washers. And our last of our keyed washers. And now we can put that retaining ring back in. Start by putting one side of it in and pulling it around. Sometimes these are not very easy to put in. If you need an assist, kind of use a screwdriver or pliers to help you with that. And then we'll just put this back on. Put our adjuster button back on. Remember the handle, what position it was in, whether you wanted it to be a right-hand crank or a left-hand crank. These are right-hand cranks. Our handle screw. We'll tighten that up. We'll give it a test. See how we did. All right, so we've got the Encore. It's a 70 size reel. We've taken this reel completely apart. We've inspected, we've cleaned, we've oiled. Oh, nothing left but then give it a test. It runs beautifully. Remember what we did? We did a little bit of an adjustment on that bail. That bail snaps nice and free and easy. It's the only thing you can do. Maybe a little shot of penetrating oil into the knob there. There's no bearing in there, but it will help to loosen up the handle knob on the shaft. That's it. That's how you take apart, service, and we'll keep a Shakespeare Encore saltwater fishing reel running for a long time to come. I hope you've enjoyed that. Again, if you like it, please like the video. If you want to see more, please subscribe. Before I leave, I want to thank our first responders, our fire, our emergency, our EMT, our police, everybody involved in keeping us out of harm's way. Really appreciate everything it is that you do. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, wishing everybody a great day.